Admiral Keith of the Draconian Empire stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign Fang. His scaled hands gripped the railing as he stared at the main view screen. The holographic display showed only empty space where the 5th battle group should have been. "Play the final transmission again," he ordered, his voice low and controlled despite the growing unease in his chest. His communications officer, a younger Draconian with lighter green scales, nodded and pressed several glowing symbols on her console. The screen flickered and the face of Commander Zex appeared. "We have entered the outer boundary of the Sol system," Commander Zex reported in the recording. "Primitive human satellites detected, but they show no signs of advanced scanning technology. We are proceeding toward the 3rd planet as ordered. No signs of—" The transmission cut to static. That was 12 hours ago. 12 ships with over 15,000 crew members had simply vanished. No distress calls, no debris, nothing. "This is the 3rd reconnaissance force to disappear near Earth in the past year," stated Sub-Commander Vril, his second-in-command. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach to the humans." Admiral Keth's tail swished in agitation. "The High Command wants answers. Humans are barely spacefaring. Their most advanced ships use primitive chemical rockets and basic ion drives. They have one small colony on their red planet and a few mining stations on their asteroids. How could they possibly pose a threat to our warships?" But deep inside, doubt gnawed at him. Something about this primitive blue world wasn't right. John Miller walked through the steel hallways of the Rocky Mountain complex, nodding to personnel as they saluted him. As director of Earth's Interstellar Defense Initiative, he carried the weight of humanity's secret defense network on his shoulders. His simple blue uniform held no special markings or medals. Those were for public military forces, the ones the rest of the galaxy was allowed to see. The real power of Earth remained hidden, buried under mountains, beneath oceans, and disguised as ordinary buildings and natural formations around the planet. John entered the command center, a vast room filled with holographic displays and busy officers. The central table lit up as he approached, displaying a 3-dimensional image of the solar system. "Status report," he said. Colonel Rita Bennett looked up from her station. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and fatigue shadowed her eyes. The Draconian battle group entered the Kuiper Belt at 0400 hours. They triggered the quantum net at 0417. The assimilation process completed at 0632. "Any survivors?" John asked, though he already knew the answer. "None, sir. As per protocol, all organic matter was converted to base elements and released into space. All technology has been salvaged and is being transported to the processing facilities." John nodded. "And their central command?" "No sign they've connected the dots yet. They sent the standard communication bursts but received no response from their ships. Based on previous patterns, they'll likely send another force soon, possibly a diplomatic one next." John walked to the main viewing window that overlooked the underground hangar. Below, engineers worked on spacecraft that would appear impossibly advanced to most humans, let alone the alien civilizations that thought Earth was an easy target. "How long until we can integrate their phase shift technology into our defense grid?" he asked. Rita consulted her tablet. "Dr. Parker estimates 3 weeks for the initial analysis, another 2 months for full integration. Tell her she has half that time," John said. "The Draconians aren't the only ones with their eyes on Earth. Intelligence suggests the Moravian Empire is also planning reconnaissance missions." He turned to face the room of officers and technicians. 2 centuries ago, humanity made a choice. Rather than announcing ourselves to the galaxy and becoming targets, we created a facade. We appeared weak, primitive, barely able to reach our own moon. He smiled thinly. "And all the while we harvested the technology of those who came to conquer us." Lieutenant Susan Clark floated through the zero-gravity section of Orbital Station, Aegis. To any observer from Earth, Aegis would appear to be simply a small asteroid in orbit around the moon. To any foreign scan, it wouldn't appear at all, thanks to dimensional shift technology acquired from the Proximan scout ship that had disappeared near Neptune 50 years ago. Susan made her way to the observation deck, where the massive quantum siphons were completing their work. Through the reinforced viewport, She could see the last molecular remains of the Draconian warships being processed. The ships had been dismantled atom by atom, their advanced alloys and technology carefully preserved while the rest was converted to raw materials. The process was beautiful in its way, a glittering cloud of particles swirling in complex patterns as the automated systems sorted, categorized, and stored everything of value. Impressive, isn't it? Susan turned to see Paul Jackson, chief engineer of the station, floating beside her. His gray eyes reflected the dancing lights of the disassembly process. 12 warships processed in less than 3 hours, Susan said. The system gets more efficient every time. Paul nodded. This batch had some interesting propulsion technology. Their phase shift drives are at least 20% more efficient than anything we've seen before. The research division is already drooling over the specs. Any weapons we haven't encountered, some variations on particle beam technology, but nothing revolutionary. They're shield modulators, though. Those are something special. They use a crystalline matrix we haven't seen before. Susan watched as the last traces of the Draconian fleet disappeared into the collection systems. You ever feel bad about it? They never even know what hit them. Paul was quiet for a moment. My grandfather was in New Delhi when the Centauri scout ship crashed there in 2097. 2 million people died from the radiation before we understood what we were dealing with. His voice was soft but firm. Every ship we process here is one less threat to Earth. Susan nodded. The history was taught to every child now. How humanity's first official contact with alien life had been disastrous. How Earth had nearly revealed its true technological capabilities then, but instead made a different choice. A harder choice. Central Command believes the Draconians will send diplomats next, she said, changing the subject. They'll want answers about their missing ships. And they'll get the same show everyone else gets, Paul replied with a thin smile. Wide-eyed humans, amazed by their advanced technology, confused about any missing ships, offering to help look for natural explanations like asteroid collisions or solar flares. Susan's communicator chimed. She checked the message and frowned. I'm needed in defense control. The long-range sensors picked up a new signal approaching from the direction of Tau Ceti. More visitors? Paul asked. Looks that way. Susan pushed, away from the viewport, propelling herself toward the exit. Let's hope these ones are just passing through. The processing bays are going to be busy for weeks with what we just collected. As she left, she glanced back one last time at the now empty space where 12 advanced warships had been. Not even dust remained to mark their passing. Just another mystery in the growing collection of disappearances near the seemingly primitive planet Earth. Another secret to keep. Grand Marshal Vorkath's claws clicked against the polished stone table as the War Council gathered in the Great Hall of the Draconian Empire. The massive chamber, carved from a single asteroid, housed the Empire's most powerful military leaders. Today, their scaled faces showed unusual concern. 3 fleets, Vorkath said, his voice echoing in the chamber. 3 fleets have vanished near the human world without a trace. His yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of the Sol system floating above the table. Admiral Zres, commander of the Empire's Western Quadrant forces, hissed softly. The humans are barely able to reach their red neighbor planet. Their technology is primitive. They have no weapons that could destroy our ships so completely. Yet our ships are gone, Vorkath replied. No debris, no distress calls, nothing. He waved a clawed hand through the hologram, zooming in on the blue-green third planet. Something is wrong with this picture. The War Council murmured in agreement. Draconian ships were the pride of the Galactic Quadrant, heavily armed, well-shielded, and crewed by the Empire's finest warriors. The idea that primitive humans could defeat them was unthinkable, perhaps a natural phenomenon, suggested Science Director Kalori, the only female in the group. A spatial anomaly or a new type of cosmic storm? 3 times in the same location? Admiral Zres scoffed. Not likely. Vorkath raised a hand for silence. We need answers, not theories. This time, we will try a different approach. He pointed to a thin, gray-scaled Draconian standing quietly. In the corner, Ambassador Grell will lead a diplomatic mission to Earth, open communication, formal protocols. Let us see how the humans respond to direct questions about our missing ships. Ambassador Grell stepped forward and bowed. As you command, Grand Marshal. And if diplomacy fails? Admiral Zress asked. Vorkath's mouth pulled back in what passed, for a smile among his kind, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Then we stop sending small fleets and bring the full might of the Empire to bear on this mystery. Alan Foster wiped sweat from his forehead as he carefully manipulated the floating three-dimensional diagram. The Quantum Appropriation Division lab, hidden beneath the New Mexico desert, hummed with activity as scientists examined the latest haul of Draconian technology. Their phase shift drive is incredible, he said to Lisa Mendez, who worked at a station nearby. Look at this energy matrix, it's at least 50% more efficient than anything we've developed. Lisa nodded, her dark eyes focused on her own display showing the crystalline structure of the Draconian shield modulators. These shield crystals are grown, not manufactured. Some kind of biological technological hybrid. I've never seen anything like it. The lab was massive, stretching nearly a mile underground, filled with technology most humans would find impossible to understand. None of it appeared in any public scientific journal or university research program. The world's brightest minds worked here in complete secrecy, taking apart alien technology and rebuilding it with human improvements. How soon can we integrate the drive system into Project Prometheus? Alan asked, zooming in on a particularly complex section of the engine design. Lisa checked another screen filled with calculations. 3 weeks for a working prototype, maybe. 2 months for full integration across the defense network. Director Miller wants it done in half that time, Alan said. Lisa sighed, but nodded. We'll need more staff on this project then. Pull some people from the weapons division. Their work on the Centauri particle beams can wait. Alan made a note and was about to respond when an alert flashed across his screen. He frowned and opened the message. We've got a situation. Long-range sensors have detected a Draconian vessel approaching the solar system. Another attack? Lisa asked, tensing. No, this one's different. It's broadcasting on open channels, requesting formal diplomatic communication with Earth leaders. They looked at each other. This was new. Usually, the alien ships tried to sneak in, thinking humans wouldn't notice their advanced cloaking systems. Looks like they're finally catching on that something's not right, Lisa said quietly. President Olivia Garcia sat in the Oval Office, listening carefully as Director John Miller briefed her on the approaching Draconian diplomatic vessel. They'll be here in 3 days, John said. They're following all the proper protocols for first contact, even though we've been observing their civilization for decades. And they still don't know that we know about them? The President asked. No, Madam President, as far as they're aware, this will be humanity's first encounter with an alien species. President Garcia stood and walked to the window, looking out at the White House lawn where tourists took photos, completely unaware of the conversation happening inside. It's been almost 200 years since we adopted the Harvester Protocol. Sometimes I wonder if we should have taken a different path. The Centauri incident proved we weren't ready for open contact, John reminded her gently. 2 million, dead in New Delhi. The panic, the religious upheaval. And that was just one scout ship that crashed accidentally. I know the history, John. The President turned back to face him. But hiding what we are, pretending to be technologically primitive, while secretly harvesting the technology of other civilizations, it can't go on forever. Every species that has found Earth has come with conquest in mind, John said firmly. Not one has approached us as equals until now, and even this diplomatic mission is only happening because they lost 3 fleets trying to scout us secretly. President E. Garcia nodded slowly. Prepare the usual welcome then. I'll play my part. She smiled without humor. The awestruck leader of a young species, amazed at the wonders of the universe and completely baffled by any missing ships. The United Nations is the best venue, John suggested. Very public, lots of human representatives from around the world. It reinforces the image of our decentralized, somewhat chaotic global society. And our neural communication systems are undetectable to their scanners? Yes, Madam President. The implants use technology we harvested from the Proximans. You'll be able to communicate instantly with our entire security team without the Draconians noticing. The president nodded. And what about the new visitors? From Tau Ceti that Lieutenant Clark detected? Still observing from the outer system. We're monitoring them closely. If they make any move toward Earth, we'll deal with them the same way we dealt with the Draconians. President Garcia sighed. Another harvest. If necessary, John confirmed. Our security comes first. Susan Clark floated in the observation bubble of Orbital Station Aegis, watching Earth rotate slowly below. From this distance, the planet looked peaceful, beautiful, its true nature hidden beneath clouds and blue oceans. The door hissed open behind her and Paul Jackson entered. Thought I'd find you here, he said, pushing off to float beside her. The diplomatic vessel will arrive in 2 days. I know, Susan replied. The processing bays are cleared and ready just in case. Command doesn't think we'll need them. This is just a talking mission. Susan turned to look at him. They always start with talking. Eventually, they'll realize something's wrong. They'll push harder. And then we'll do what we've always done, Paul finished. Protect Earth. They floated in silence for a while, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, a Draconian diplomatic vessel approached, unaware it was being tracked by technology their scientists could barely imagine. Unaware that the primitive humans they hoped to intimidate had already taken apart 12 of their most powerful warships and were busy rebuilding the technology as their own. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if we just told the truth, Susan said softly. Revealed what we really are. Paul shook his head. The galaxy isn't ready for the truth about humans. Maybe it never will be. The Draconian diplomatic vessel, Voice of Reason, entered Earth's atmosphere on a clear Tuesday morning. Millions of humans around the world watched the live streams as the sleek silver ship descended toward New York City. Its hull gleamed in the sunlight as it settled gently onto the landing pad, specially constructed in Central Park. News anchors spoke excitedly about humanity's first official contact with alien life. Of course, this wasn't true, but the general public didn't know that. They didn't know about the Centauri incident or the 2 centuries of secret harvesting that followed. They didn't know that the first contact was carefully staged theater. Ambassador Grell stepped from the ship, flanked by 6 Draconian officials. Their scaled bodies and reptilian features caused gasps from the human crowd, kept at a safe distance by security barriers. Grell wore elaborate ceremonial armor with symbols of his rank and house etched in precious metals. He looked around at the primitive human city with buildings of concrete and glass, noting the primitive ground vehicles and basic aircraft that occasionally passed overhead. Nothing he saw suggested the humans could possibly threaten Draconian warships. A motorcade of black vehicles approached. From the central car emerged President Olivia Garcia, along with the Secretary General of the United Nations and several other world leaders. They walked forward at a measured pace, faces showing appropriate wonder and caution. Welcome to Earth, President Garcia said, her voice steady despite the apparently momentous occasion. We are honored by your visit. The neural implant hidden beneath her skull allowed her to simultaneously communicate with her security team and receive updates without the Draconians noticing. The Draconian Empire extends greetings to the people of Earth, Ambassador Grell replied, his translator device converting his hissing language to English. We come in peace and friendship. The crowd cheered as cameras captured the historic handshake between human and Draconian. News commentators called it the most important moment in human history. In a way, they were right, though not for the reasons they believed. The United Nations headquarters buzzed with activity as final preparations were made for the formal meeting. Human representatives from nearly 200 countries filled the General Assembly Hall, all eager to witness the historic dialogue. Few knew it was carefully choreographed political theater. George Williams, chief of counterintelligence, stood near the wall, watching the Draconian delegation take their seats at the front of the chamber. To anyone who looked, he appeared to be just another security officer. In reality, he was coordinating the most complex counterintelligence operation in human history. All neural links are functioning, he subvocalized, The words transmitted instantly to the entire security team through their implants. No sign they can detect our communication network. Ambassador Grell has 7 concealed scanning devices on his person. All are being fed false readings. Across the room, President Garcia gave no sign she'd heard the update as she welcomed the Draconian delegation with all the appropriate diplomatic ceremony. Before we begin formal relations between our worlds, Ambassador Grell said after the introductions were complete, there is a matter of concern we wish to address. President Garcia tilted her head in practiced curiosity. Of course, Ambassador. How may we help? Several of our vessels have disappeared in this region of space, Grell stated bluntly. Our records indicate they were last seen approaching your solar system. A murmur ran through the human delegates. This was not part of the public script, though it was exactly what the security team had anticipated. President Garcia's face showed confusion, with just the right touch of concern. Disappeared? I'm sorry to hear that, Ambassador, but I'm afraid I don't understand how we could help. Our space capabilities are quite limited. She gestured to the large screen behind her, which displayed images of bulky human space stations and the small Mars colony with its dome habitats. We have barely established a presence on Mars. Our sensors can hardly track objects beyond Jupiter. Through her neural implant, she received George's silent message. Perfect response. Their scanners are attempting to access our satellite network. Now, they're being fed the pre-prepared data packets. Ambassador Grell's reptilian eyes narrowed slightly. Perhaps a natural phenomenon is responsible. We have detected unusual energy readings in your system's outer regions. Energy readings? President Garcia repeated, looking genuinely surprised. Our astronomers have observed some gravitational anomalies beyond Neptune. We've been studying them, but with our current technology, detailed analysis is difficult. We would welcome any data you could share on these phenomena. The exchange continued for another hour, with the Draconians probing for information and the humans presenting the carefully crafted image of a young, technologically limited species. President Garcia even arranged for human scientists to express appropriate awe at basic Draconian technology that Earth had secretly surpassed centuries ago. In an underground facility 10 miles beneath the UN building, Alan Foster and Lisa Mendez monitored the diplomatic meeting through their neural links. Around them, massive quantum computers processed every word, every micro-expression from the Draconian delegates. They're suspicious, but they don't have proof of anything, Lisa said, studying the behavioral analysis scrolling across her screen. Ambassador Grell's pulse rate and body temperature show stress markers whenever the missing ships are mentioned. Alan nodded, focusing on his own display that showed the complex web of false data being fed to the Draconian scanning devices. Their technology is good, not as good as they think, but good. We've had to update our countermeasures twice already. Hold on, Lisa said suddenly, pointing to a new alert flashing on her screen. They just launched something from their ship, small stealthed objects heading to different regions around the globe. Alan quickly pulled up the tracking data. Probe drones, at least 20 of them. They're trying to get independent readings while the diplomatic team keeps us distracted. He sent a priority alert through the neural network. Within seconds, the response came back from Director Miller. Let them see what we want them to see. Guide them to the decoy facilities. Operation Shadow Tour is now active. Alan and Lisa exchanged glances. Operation Shadow Tour had been prepared for years. A carefully constructed series of fake research centers and military bases designed to reinforce the image of Earth as a developing world still mastering basic spaceflight. The probes would find exactly what the Draconians expected to find, nothing that could explain the disappearance of their warships. Susan Clark received the alert about the probe drones while monitoring communications from orbital station Aegis. The station itself was undetectable to Draconian scanners, hidden behind dimensional shift technology. They're getting bolder, Paul Jackson commented, watching the drone trajectories on the main display. Launching spy equipment during a diplomatic mission is pretty aggressive. Susan nodded. They're desperate for answers. 3 fleets is no small loss, even for an empire their size. Will the decoy sites be enough? Paul asked. They've worked before, Susan replied. The question is whether the Draconians will be satisfied with what they find, or if they'll keep pushing. Paul was quiet for a moment, then said, "If they keep pushing, they'll eventually find something they shouldn't, and then we'll have no choice," Susan finished grimly. "The diplomatic vessel will disappear just like the others." She turned her attention back to the display. For now, the charade continued. The humans played their roles as the innocent, developing species. The Draconians probed cautiously for answers they wouldn't find, and in hidden facilities around the world and throughout the solar system, humanity's true power remained concealed, waiting. Commander Drax of Draconian Special Intelligence adjusted the settings on his personal cloaking device. The advanced technology bent light around his scaled body, making him nearly invisible to standard human detection methods. At least that's what he believed. "Team check," he hissed softly into his communication device. "Position 1, ready," came the first response. "Position 2, ready. Position 3, ready." All 6 members of his infiltration team were in place. While Ambassador Grell continued the diplomatic dance, Drax and his team would discover what the humans were really hiding. Their stealth vessel had slipped past Earth's orbital satellites during the night. The ship's sensors had detected minimal security measures, just basic radar and optical systems that posed no challenge to Draconian stealth technology. Now Drax stood outside a research facility in Nevada, a sprawling complex surrounded by desert. Intelligence suggested it housed the humans' most advanced space propulsion laboratory. "Begin infiltration," he ordered. His team moved forward, passing effortlessly through the perimeter fence. Human security guards walked their routes, completely unaware of the invisible intruders moving among them. What Commander Drax didn't know was that each invisible Draconian was surrounded by a faint quantum distortion field that Earth sensors could detect with perfect clarity. The human guards weren't oblivious, they were following strict orders to appear oblivious. Patricia Quinn sat in her command center beneath the Nevada facility, watching the Draconian infiltration team through quantum imaging displays. As Director Y of Earth's Counterintelligence Division, she had prepared for this moment for years. "All 6 targets have entered the main building," reported one of her officers. "They're following the exact path we predicted." Patricia nodded. "Activate the holographic overlay systems. Let them see exactly what we want them to see." Around her, dozens of technicians monitored complex systems that created an elaborate illusion. As the Draconians moved through the facility, specially designed projectors altered what they saw. Real advanced technology was hidden behind false images of primitive human equipment. "They're entering the main propulsion lab now," another officer reported. Patricia smiled slightly. "Show them our cutting-edge ion drive prototype. Make sure they get a good look at the flawed design specs." On her screen, she watched as the cloaked Draconians moved through a laboratory filled with human scientists. The aliens carefully documented everything they saw. Earth's supposed best efforts at developing basic ion propulsion systems, not much different from what humans publicly used on their Mars missions. None of the Draconians realized that the scientists were actually security personnel running a carefully choreographed performance. The real propulsion lab was 50 levels below them, where engineers worked with technology harvested from a dozen alien civilizations. "They're downloading our decoy technical database," an officer reported. "Should we allow it?" "Yes," Patricia replied. "Let them take everything. It will only confirm what they want to believe, that humans are no threat to them." Commander Drax moved carefully through the human laboratory, recording everything with his advanced scanning devices. He paused at a workstation where diagrams showed the humans struggling with basic ion propulsion problems that Draconian engineers had solved centuries ago. "Primitive," he subvocalized to his team. "They're at least a century from developing technology that could challenge even our civilian vessels." He moved to another section where human scientists were testing materials for heat resistance, another basic problem long solved in Draconian ship design. After 2 hours of thorough investigation, Drax and his team slipped back out of the facility, completely convinced they had seen Earth's most advanced technology. They returned to their stealth vessel, and transmitted their findings to Ambassador Grell's diplomatic ship. The humans pose no technological threat, Drax reported. Whatever happened to our missing vessels, it was not human weapons. In her office beneath the White House, President Garcia reviewed the counterintelligence reports with John Miller. The Draconian infiltration team took the bait completely, John said, his face showing rare satisfaction. They believe they've seen our most advanced propulsion research. And Ambassador Grell? The president asked. He received Commander Drax's report during this morning's diplomatic session. Our neural net detected his relief immediately. He's now convinced that humans couldn't possibly be responsible for the missing ships. President Garcia nodded. So they'll look elsewhere for answers. Most likely, John agreed. Though they may maintain diplomatic relations to study us further, we're still an unknown factor in their strategic calculations, just not an immediate threat. The president walked to the window, looking out at the Washington Monument in the distance. How long do you think we can maintain this deception? 200 years of hiding what we really are. Sooner or later, someone will discover the truth. John was quiet for a moment. The alternative is to reveal ourselves and become an open target. Every species we've encountered so far has been hostile, Madam President. Open or hidden aggression, it's all the same in the end. They want our resources, our position near valuable trade routes, or simply to eliminate potential competition. I know, she sighed. That's why we hide. That's why we harvest their technology instead of sharing ours. That's why we maintain this elaborate charade. She turned back to face him. But it can't go on forever. Eventually we'll need to step onto the galactic stage as equals. Not until we're sure we can protect ourselves, John said firmly. An alert chimed on his secure tablet. He frowned as he read the message. Problem? The president asked. Maybe. The long-range sensors have detected unusual activity from the visitors near Tau Ceti. They've changed course and are accelerating toward Earth. They'll enter the outer solar system within 24 hours. The Draconians are still here, President Garcia noted. This could complicate matters. John's expression turned grim, or it could provide an opportunity to solve two problems at once. Beneath the Atlantic Ocean, the quantum forge hummed with energy as engineers prepared for possible new acquisitions. The massive facility stretched for miles along the ocean floor, hidden from surface detection by advanced cloaking systems. Chief Engineer Eric Mason studied the data coming in from deep space monitoring stations. The approaching Tau Ceti vessel showed unique energy signatures, different from anything in Earth's extensive database of alien technology. New configurations, new alloys, possibly new weapon systems, he noted to his assistant. If they turn hostile, the harvest could be very valuable. And if they're peaceful? His assistant asked. Eric laughed humorlessly. In 200 years, how many peaceful first contacts have we had? None confirmed, the assistant admitted. Exactly. They all come looking for resources or conquest. They all see our apparent weakness as an opportunity. Eric turned back to his screens, where the Tau Ceti ship's signatures glowed brightly. At least their technology will serve some purpose when we add it to our own. The Quantum Forge's massive processing chambers stood ready. If the approaching ships proved hostile, they would meet the same fate as the Draconian battle fleets. Disassembled molecule by molecule, their technology harvested to make humanity stronger. And all the while, the diplomatic dance with the Draconians continued above, with humans playing their role as a young, innocent species just beginning to reach for the stars. The Moravian war fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 30 massive warships, their hulls covered in weapon ports and energy projectors, formed a perfect attack formation. The Moravians were long-standing, rivals of the Draconian Empire, constantly competing for territory and resources across the galaxy. Admiral Zolvik of the Moravian fleet smiled as his sensors detected the single Draconian diplomatic vessel in orbit around Earth. His 4 arms moved across the control console, bringing weapon systems online. So the lizards found a new world to conquer, he rumbled to his second-in-command. Too bad they won't get to keep it. The planet appears minimally developed, his officer reported. Primitive satellites, basic space stations, small colony. On the fourth planet, no significant defenses detected. Perfect, Admiral Zolvik said. We'll destroy the Draconian vessel, claim this system for the Moravian Collective, and be home for the Festival of Moons. The warfleet accelerated toward Earth, their engines flaring bright against the blackness of space. Orbital Station Aegis detected the Moravian fleet the moment they entered the solar system. Susan Clark was on duty when the alert sounded across. The command center. 30 vessels, Moravian configuration, she reported to her superior officers through the neural network. Heavy weapon signatures, attack formation, they're moving fast. The response came immediately from Director Miller. All defense stations to maximum readiness. The Draconians are still in orbit. This is not an ideal scenario. Susan understood the problem immediately. Earth had maintained its deception with the Draconians for days, convincing them that humans were technologically primitive. Now a hostile fleet was approaching, and Earth would need to defend itself. The charade was about to collapse. In the United Nations building, Ambassador Grell received the emergency transmission from his ship in orbit. His reptilian features showed rare alarm as he turned to President Garcia during their diplomatic meeting. Madam President, I must regretfully inform you that a fleet of Moravian warships has entered your solar system, he said urgently. The Moravians are hostile to both our peoples. My vessel must depart immediately. President Garcia showed appropriate shock and confusion. Moravian? I don't understand. Who are these people? Why would they attack Earth? Through her neural implant, she was simultaneously receiving updates from Earth's defense network and giving orders for deployment. Ambassador Grell's expression was grim. They are a conquering species who will show your world no mercy. My vessel is no match for their fleet. I must return to Draconian space to summon reinforcements, but I fear they will arrive too late to help your people. You're leaving us defenseless? President Garcia asked, maintaining her act of a leader about to face extinction. I have no choice, Grell replied. We will return as quickly as possible, but you should prepare your people for the worst. He bowed stiffly and hurried from the chamber, already communicating with his ship to prepare for emergency departure. Through her neural implant, President Garcia gave the order everyone had been waiting for. Unveil the shield. Kevin Matthews, Earth Defense Force Commander, stood in the Global Defense Control Center beneath the Pacific Ocean. As the presidential order came through, he felt a mix of relief and anticipation. After days of pretending to be weak, they could finally show their true strength. Initiate planetary defense system, he ordered. Bring all platforms online, launch the fleet. Around the world, the remarkable transformation began. What had appeared to be ordinary buildings, mountains, and even sections of ocean shimmered and changed as advanced holographic systems deactivated. Massive defense platforms, hidden in dimensional pockets for centuries, emerged across the planet's surface and in orbit. The quantum shield, a planetary defense system that existed partially in another dimension, activated, surrounding Earth in a brilliant blue energy field that could withstand attacks from weapons the Moravians hadn't even imagined yet. Ambassador Grell was nearly to his ship when the sky above New York City changed. His reptilian eyes widened as massive defense platforms materialized where nothing had been moments before. His scanner showed impossible energy readings suddenly emanating from the planet below. What trickery is this? He whispered. His ship, in orbit, sent frantic updates. Defense installations were appearing all around Earth, far more advanced than anything in the Draconian arsenal, and from the lunar surface, concealed hangars were opening to release thousands of ships. From the lunar shipyards, Earth's battle fleet launched. These weren't the bulky, primitive craft the Draconians had been shown. These vessels incorporated technology harvested from dozens of alien civilizations over 2 centuries, improved upon by human innovation. Fleet Admiral Maya Lopez watched from her flagship as her vessels formed up. All ships prepare to engage the Moravian fleet. Capture protocols are in effect. We want their technology intact. Admiral Zolvik of the Moravian fleet was confused by the sudden energy readings from Earth. What is happening? He demanded. Where did these defense platforms come from? Before his officers could respond, the human fleet appeared on their sensors. Thousands of ships, far more advanced than anything the Moravians had expected. Impossible, he whispered. The intelligence report said this was a primitive world. The human vessels moved with impossible speed, surrounding the Moravian fleet before they could react. Targeted quantum fields enveloped the Moravian ships one by one, not destroying them, but beginning the careful process of molecular disassembly. They're taking our ships apart, his weapons officer cried in panic. Not with weapons, they're just dissolving. Admiral Zolvik watched in horror as his mighty warfleet was systematically dismantled. There was no battle, no glorious combat, just the methodical harvest of Moravian technology by an enemy they had grievously underestimated. Ambassador Grell stood frozen on the landing pad next to his ship, watching as the truth about Earth was finally revealed. President Garcia walked toward him, no longer pretending to be the leader of a primitive civilization. I apologize for the deception, Ambassador, she said calmly. But we had to be certain of your intentions. What are you? Grell asked, his voice barely audible. We are humans, she replied simply. 200 years ago, we learned a hard lesson when the first alien ship crashed in one of our cities. We discovered that the galaxy was full of species that would see us as nothing more than a resource to exploit or territory to conquer. Above them, the Moravian fleet was being systematically taken apart, their advanced technology added to Earth's already formidable arsenal. So we made a choice. President Garcia continued. We would appear weak, primitive, barely able to reach our own moon, and all the while we would harvest the technology of those who came to conquer us. Grell's reptilian eyes narrowed. Our missing fleets. You did this to them. Yes. They came as invaders, not as friends. They paid the price for their aggression. And now? Grell asked, understanding his precarious position. President Garcia's expression softened slightly. Now we have a choice to make. You came under the banner of diplomacy, even if your true purpose was to investigate our supposed weakness. We could start again. True diplomacy this time, between equals. In orbit above them, the last of the Moravian ships was processed, its technology added to Earth's ever-growing arsenal. The human fleet returned to their hidden bases, vanishing from sensors as if they had never existed. This is why we hide, President Garcia explained, gesturing to the defense platforms now visible around them. Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak was our greatest strength. Every species that attempted to conquer us has only made us stronger. Ambassador Grell looked at the human leader with new understanding and a healthy dose of fear. The humans had been hiding in plain sight. Not a vulnerable civilization ripe for conquest, but a technological predator, allowing itself to be underestimated while it consumed the best technologies the galaxy had to offer, one would-be invader at a time. The Draconian Empire would be wise to seek true friendship with Earth, he said finally. President Garcia smiled. We would welcome that, Ambassador. Perhaps together we can build a galaxy where deception is no longer necessary. Above them, Earth's defenses remained visible, a clear message to anyone watching that the time for hiding was over. The secret was out. Humanity was ready to take its place among the stars, not as prey, but as one of the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. All thanks to the technology they had harvested from those who had underestimated them.